Greetings, YouTube. The Doctor is in. Dr. Urias Papers here, coming at you with another commentary on Dungeons and Dragons. And today we are going to be talking about the updates that came to the new Barkskin spell in the Player's Handbook 2024. But first, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you have any questions or comments, please leave a question or comment, and don't forget to hit that notification bell. All right, so originally I gave this spell a pretty high rating. I have since changed my mind pretty dramatically with this. This is one of these spells that is a lower level spell, Barkskin, that eventually loses almost all of its utility later on. And there's items that do the same thing as this. I don't really like this mechanic in the game because it's very limiting to a very low set of levels. Those levels being essentially, you can start casting this at like 3rd level, and I would say by about 6th or 7th level, this spell is no longer useful because of people getting magic items that improve their armor class beyond. So let's take a look at the legacy version first. It was a 2nd level spell, usable by druids, rangers, nature domain clerics, and circle of the land forest druids. It took 1 action to cast. It lasts for an hour. It was concentration. Verbal, somatic, and material component, which didn't matter. You touch a willing creature until the spell ends. The target's skin has a rough bark-like appearance, and the target's AC cannot be less than 16, regardless of what kind of armor it is wearing. Now, are shields armor? I don't know. They're in the armor section of the player's handbook, so technically, they're classified as armor. So if you're holding a shield, it doesn't really matter. So essentially, this would lock your armor class at 16. Now, what changes did they make with the new version? Did they make the spell better? And did they give it more utility at higher levels? And the answer to that is pretty much no. So it's still a 2nd level spell. They changed the casting time to a bonus action. I have no idea why that is. It lasts for an hour. Now it's no longer concentration. So that in itself is great. So it's essentially the druid's version of mage armor now. But it's still, I still don't get why they changed it from an action to a bonus action. You're not going to cast this during combat. You're going to cast this out of combat. So who cares whether it's an action or a bonus action? That doesn't really make the spell any better. Still touch, still lasts for an hour, still verbal, somatic, and material component, still a druid, ranger, and nature domain cleric spell. You touch a willing creature until the spell ends. The target skin assumes a bark-like appearance, and the target has an armor class of 17 if its armor class is lower than that. Now, it doesn't say here regardless of what armor it's wearing. The original one said regardless of what kind of armor it's wearing. This one just says the target has an armor class of 17 if its AC is lower than that, which means that if you donned a bunch of armor, that would increase your armor class above 17. That's what your armor class would be. Thus, you don't need this spell anymore. So what? Now, I am going to put this spell at a solid C right now. It's okay, like I said, until about 6th or 7th level. And then it just kind of loses its utility. Now, I do want to address why that is. So who would this spell be cast on? It's going to be cast on characters that are not necessarily wearing armor. You're not going to cast it on your fighter that's got full plate mail and a shield. Not going to happen. And why is that? Because full plate mail is an 18 with a shield as an AC of 20. So Barkskin's going to do nothing for that character. So you're going to generally cast this spell on characters that do have a problem with armor class. So character classes like barbarians, maybe monks if you're not playing the monk correctly. I mean, it is a druid spell and a ranger spell, so maybe druids and rangers, and maybe things like sorcerers and wizards. So let's take a look at the barbarian. So the barbarian gets this thing at level 1 called unarmored defense. Now, there's a lot of things that are tied to them not wearing armor. So rage, you can enter it as a bonus action if you are not wearing heavy armor for rage. So you can't have heavy armor on, but a barbarian can wear light or medium armor and have a shield and still get the benefit of all their stuff. Now they get this unarmored defense. So while you aren't wearing any armor, your base armor class is 10 plus your dex and con modifier. So, maybe you've got I would say the highest that I would see a barbarian have with either one of these, because a barbarian's a strength-based character, with the point buy system or the array system for stats, is maybe you have a 14 dex and a 15 con. So that in itself is, maybe a 16 con at the most. So 14 would be a +2, 15 would be a +2, 16 would be a +3. So you would have a 14 to 15 armor class. And then if you had a shield, that would raise it to 17. So if you were a barbarian that had a one-handed weapon and a shield, and you're an unarmored defense, and you had essentially the highest con and dex that you would reasonably have, you wouldn't benefit from Barkskin. If you didn't, then you might benefit from Barkskin at that point. But as soon as you start getting magic shields, then that kind of goes out of style and phases out. Now the monk is a little bit different. They also get unarmored defense, and monks are not trained in any armor, including shields. So with their unarmored defense, your armor class is a base 10 plus your dex and wisdom. Now a monk is going to be dex based, so I'm going to assume a +4, and they're going to have a pretty high wisdom, so I'm going to assume at least a +2, probably a +3. So there's 17 right there. And that is what is the new Barkskin. So again, monks are not really going to benefit from this. And then again, when you start getting into those levels like 6, 7, they might be picking up rings of protection or cloaks of protection, which is going to increase their armor class even more. Now, it's a druid spell, and druids can use light armor and shields. So a druid could get studded leather and a shield. Now, that's going to be 12 plus their dex modifier. I don't think... Dex is not a dump stat for druids, but it could be a pretty good score, so maybe a +1 or a +2. Let's assume it's a +1. So that's going to be a 13 plus a shield is a 14, 15. So they would benefit from Barkskin until they got like +1 armor or a +1 shield. Now, if they're not wielding a shield, then Barkskin absolutely is a good spell for them, and that will go for quite some time. It's also a ranger spell, and rangers are trained in light and medium armor and shields. So that means that they can go to half plate, which is 15 plus their dex modifier, and their dex is going to be pretty high. So it's definitely going to be a 17, even without a shield. So Barkskin is probably not a great spell for rangers. For wizards are not trained in any armor. They don't get any unarmored bonus, but they do get mage armor, which hangs around for 8 hours, and their AC becomes 13 plus their dex modifier. Maybe they have a +2, so it's a 15. And at that point, they would probably benefit from this spell. But again, a wizard shouldn't be in front combat whatsoever at all. And maybe you're like an abjuration wizard who is frontline that has a level in fighter, in which case you're going to be putting on plate mail, and you'll probably have a shield because you can do that. So probably not going to be great. So again, you can see why I'm giving this a C, and I think C is a little bit of a stretch for this spell. I don't necessarily understand why they changed the action casting time to a bonus action casting time. That really did not do anything for the spell whatsoever at all. What did do something for the spell is they increased the AC by 1, and they got rid of the concentration. But other than that, not a great spell. I think there are other second-level spells, if I were a druid or ranger, that I would be taking. All right, that is what I have for everybody today. I appreciate everybody tuning in, and I will catch everybody.